Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Enyugulu. Now there's apprehension but also excitement as El Salvador becomes the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. It's a move that's got the nation and the world debating the opportunities and dangers of cryptocurrency. From today, businesses will be obliged, where possible, to accept the controversial digital coins as payments. The value of Bitcoin has risen and fallen dramatically in the last year, and many governments around the world, such as China, are going in the opposite direction and attempting to restrict the adoption of cryptocurrency with increased regulations. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now from London by Arise business analyst Bode Ososami. Great to see you, Bode. Let's start, because obviously the big day has come, as it were. I suppose the big question is, why is El Salvador doing this? What's the broad plan?
Well, I think El Salvador needs a lot of help given its economic situation. And what the president has said is that Bitcoin could be a lever to address some of the issues like inclusiveness in the financial system, and also lowering the cost of sending remittances. But I think that the larger issue beyond the issues around the economy, El Salvador's economy actually last year suffered its deepest crash in 4 decades. The GDP growth is projected to return with growth of maybe 4.9% this year. But there are all kinds of issues, weak fiscal metrics, challenging debt sustainability. The IMF already has warned that the Bitcoin law constitutes a potential threat to macro stability, particularly if Bitcoin keeps going up and down. And there's a crime and violence problem in El Salvador that has led to many Salvadorians migrating from the country, and Bitcoin may not be helpful. Moody actually downgraded the country's rating on the 30th of July, noting that it was in early June when this announcement was first made. And 3 days later, the law was quickly passed. And within what many see as a very, very short time, within 90 days, we are now in this situation, less than 5% of the population really understanding what they're getting into. So the context obviously sounds like a gamble, and to address some of the issues and an experiment, perhaps this will work, but many see this as grasping for straws, asking El Salvador to do a more serious reform rather than expect Bitcoin to do the miracle.
But of course, as you and I have discussed in the past, I mean, Bitcoin is electronic. What does it mean practically? I mean, does it mean that if someone wants to pay you in Bitcoin in El Salvador, you have to accept it? Does it sort of translate into US dollars or something like that?
Well, the way it works practically is that vendors are now allowed to display their wares in Bitcoin prices. Tax contributions can be made in Bitcoin. And of course, you can also, it's legal tender. And the way it works, there is a wallet app called Chivo, which citizens can sign up with a national ID, and users will receive $30 worth of Bitcoin when they sign up. And there are ATMs, I understand about 200 Bitcoin ATMs where you can go and change the Bitcoin to dollars if you want to quickly do so after you've done a transaction. Also, all vendors are as much as possible encouraged to accept it, but those that are not able to because of the technology are exempted somewhat. So I think that there, of course, is going to be a transitional phase where there'll be a lot of learning, as many retailers are obviously concerned, and even those that are accepting it most likely will be rushing to the ATMs to change the Bitcoin back to dollars as quickly as possible, given the volatility that is expected with this type of currency.
And I mean, do the Salvadorians themselves feel happy about this? I mean, do they feel that the government has told them enough about why they're doing this and how it's all going to work?
But it's difficult for them to be excited, given that this happened just less than 24 hours after Kim Kardashian was publicly scolded by the head of UK's Financial Conduct Authority, Charles Randall, for asking her 250 million followers to speculate on a speculative digital token. This was at an international symposium on economic crime. She was accused of fueling the delusions of quick riches, and was just short of being called a criminal. So, although we need to have an open mind, given that this is happening for the first time in a country, and the expectation is that remittances will be boosted. My understanding, based on the polls, is that less than 60% of vendors are said to be keen on adopting this new measure. Fewer than 5% of the entire population really understand what it is. But crypto enthusiasts, they believe this is normal when you're introducing something new, and by the time they get used to it, they would see its value, and particularly the ease at which they will be able to transfer remittances. That is something that we're of course watching to see whether there's an uptick in the volume of capital inflows. So the initial alarm in terms of very low interest and concerns is seen as natural, but of course, like I said, other watchers are calling this a dangerous gamble, Charles.
Right, and when you mention dangerous, one thinks of crime and violence, ransoms for hackers and all the rest of it. Is there a sense that all this is likely to fuel more crime?
Well, some say that the issues around crime have been over-exaggerated, that of course you have crime with almost every currency, true, and especially as the more legitimate players get more interested in the use of this currency, maybe the proportion used for crime will be less. But others insist that this is a country that already has the crime and violence problem, and it shouldn't be making things worse by going into this country, into this type of experiment. I think the real situation is somewhere between both diametrically opposed viewpoints.
Right, so I mean, it's only a few hours old now. It's the first time it's happened in the world. Is it, in your assessment, likely to be successful, or will it be written off in the future as some sort of crackpot scheme? I mean, a lot of institutions of finance oppose it, don't they?
Well, I want to respect the financial authorities in El Salvador and the leadership. Obviously, they don't think this is going to be the situation. Definitely, regulators see this as a dodgy experiment. And like I said, it looks like El Salvador is grasping at straws. Some are saying there are safer models like the M-Pesa model by Safaricom that are more transparent and better regulated that could also be used to address the issue of inclusion. And as you also know, central banks are also moving to introduce their own digital currencies, which could compete with Bitcoin. But those bashing Bitcoin say this currency, crypto, is not designed to really be a currency. You are betting on something that is so volatile. And although the enthusiasts say it's the new thing, so you really have completely different views, and it's very difficult. I just want to have an open mind on it. If indeed it is the ultimate disruption, we shall soon know. And maybe we need an experiment, and we can't get a good model, because the other thing, of course, if you want to sell something, you want to have the right model to be selling it. And El Salvador is hardly the right model, but perhaps a pilot is something that could be helpful in understanding the pluses and minuses of this currency.
So, I mean, who's likely to be next then? Do you see a sort of domino effect in terms of Bitcoin adoption? We talked about Cuba possibly. Does that fit into your sort of assessments there?
Well, there are several other issues. For example, the climate, Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin is described as a power-hungry currency requiring energy-intensive backroom processes. It has a high carbon footprint. So you're likely, if it's going to be adopted, it would be in an environment where the emissions sensitivity is perhaps less. Also, in emerging economies who want to be less tied to the dollar as much as possible, and of course, where the huge potential for international remittances, where they have a large diaspora population, and you need countries with neutral or favorable regulatory environment to cryptos, not Nigeria, for example, and countries with low financial inclusion, and where the cost of transfer
right.
digital transactions are seen to be high. So Maybe Cuba, but I wouldn't want to guess yet. Let's see how this goes.
Okay. Bode, thank you very much indeed. Bode Ososami, a Rise business analyst, talking to me from London. That's it. Bye-bye.